Hey, it's Chris, Liege Games. So, post-Gen Con news. I'm going to go over it all today. All you need to know from the last 4 days, everything that's been announced, everything that's been thrown out there, everything that has come from this convention news-wise, game-wise, everything else in between. We're going to start off with a little bit of a ramble here at the beginning because I just don't really know what to make of this, right? Because there are some very, very high-profile games like Ahoy from Leader Games, like Twilight Inscription from FFG, things like Kids Table Board Game and Burnt Island that are putting out Creature Comforts. But this is the more recent release of Power Plants. But then also we have Fall of the Mountain King. Now, what's the commonality between these? Well, 2 of them are retail. 2 of them are crowdfunding. The issue is that none of them are going to be available for at least a couple months. Leader Games has already said Ahoy isn't going to be available until late Q4 or sometime middle Q4. Twilight Inscription has a release date of September 16, and that's if everything goes right from a release standpoint for FFG. And frankly speaking, I don't really trust that. So you could be talking easily 2 months out from now, and that's probably the least. Fall of the Mountain King isn't even on a ship or a boat out of China yet. Power Plants hasn't even finished productions. And, you know, they're saying, hey, we're strapped tight. We got 80 of these copies produced, you know, for Power Plants, for example. And, you know, it's just the retail version. But with all 4 of these games, for someone like myself who's not at Gen Con, who isn't going to be getting these games. Now, I'm backing Power Plants. I'm backing Fall of the Mountain King, right? But then with all of these, there's such limited availability. But there's also such hype that companies are trying to drum up with these, that they're willing to sell them early, they're willing to go that far, they're willing to send them to people like myself months in advance when they're just going to be frankly unavailable. And how do you feel about that? How do you feel about that? I mean, to be completely transparent, I have very mixed feelings on it, right? Because I have the crowdfunding edition of Power Plants, which is going to have a bunch of extra stuff. I have the crowdfunding edition of Fall of the Mountain King, which is going to have extra stuff. But on a creator side of things, right? It's all about riding the hotness, riding the hype train, being first, right? At least that's what it seems like a lot of the time, right? The grass is greener. I mean, the amounts of views and likes and that sort of thing that happen if you're one of the first couple people to have a video out about something that's halfway hot is immensely more than, you know, say one of the reviews that I'm going to put out later this week, which is only, you know, a year or just over a year old in terms of game. And from a personal standpoint, again, I'm getting stuff that people aren't. So, like when Marvel United came to retail, I didn't really care because I knew I was going to be getting a ton more for, you know, not a ton more price, relativistically speaking, if I wanted to sell it for. So it just creates this swirling mass of emotions in me when I see that across the board, especially because it turns into, and I'm going to quote one of the local radio stations here, and you'll understand where I'm going with this in a second, the term that they have coined, braggadocio. You know, essentially, brag, no brag, right? You go onto Twitter, you go onto Facebook, and you see people posting, I got one of the 50 copies of Ahoy that was going today. I got one of the 50 copies of Twilight Inscription that's going today. You know, things like that. And then the companies being like, we sold out! Exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. And it's just weird. It just creates weird feelings. And I don't know if I'm the only one, but I mean, I'm not going to hold any ill will because you got to stay up as a business. It just creates this dynamic of strangeness in me. That being said, ramble over. Let's get into the news. That's why you really tuned in. We're going to start off here with one of the bigger ones, you know, staying in line with the Twilight Inscription. We're going to stay with FFG, and this is Marvel Champions. FFG had their little in-flight thing, which was really just 2 guys from FFG talking into a camera in the middle of like a play hall. It was half empty, so it was kind of weird. I watched actually some of the video from each day. But the big announcement and the big question had been, okay, we know Mutant Genesis is coming out later this year, and they announced 2 of the previous champions that go along with this cycle, essentially, that they're putting out, right, each time. And each cycle has 4 individual heroes or champions that they're going to be doing. And they said, okay, what is going to be that? And they already have announced Phoenix here as an awesome one. I can't imagine how they're going to do this, because Phoenix is like an Omega level mutant, and it's one of the most powerful things in the galaxy. So I don't know if I would have started that one, but sure. And then Cyclops going with kinda the middling costume, and again, very good from a leadership standpoint. But the two that they actually announced, and this is why it's making news, is one, the more surprising Mojo Mania scenario pack. So that's a completely different thing. That's not even included in the 4 characters. And the one character that they did spoil and announce is, and I just really like this image, this is Wolverine, mashup, essentially. So that was the big announcement, which, I know, right? Everyone's surprised. I can't believe they did Wolverine. Apparently, though, he hurts himself to get more resources. So that's going to be the cool mechanic that goes along with it if you're someone like me who's only played half a dozen times and has almost everything to begin with. Anyway, not that I'm speaking from personal experience from that aspect. So that, along with Twilight Inscription, are really going to be buffering them strong, I think, in terms of the hotness for Q4 of this year. Now, we're going to go over to Board Game Geek here in a second, and we're going to see what Osprey Games has in store for us, a new Imperium game. Buckle and Turksey are back at with more 14 different civilizations in this edition. Now, I really want to love this game. I still have this game on my shelf. I don't really know if I can love this game, because the rulebook is a complete and utter mess. I'll say it. People have defended it. People have denied it. It's a complete and utter mess. It does not give you a apt description of how to play. It gives you elements of playing, but there is no point. Can you open it up and say, okay, this is what I do on my turn. I do this, and then this, and then this, and these are the things. No. And you have to watch 2 or 3 videos. And even I watched Paul Grogan's video when I first talked about this like a year ago. And even that, he was making a couple mistakes, and it was still difficult to learn. And that's been the biggest issue. This is a deck building game of asymmetric civilizations that'll take you 60 to 90 minutes to play a game, even solo. And I want to love this as a person who loves deck building. And I would love to pick this up, but I haven't picked up anything else but Legends, because I'm afraid that it's just going to be bleh. Unless you're going to put out like not even a 2.0, but like a 3.0 version of this. And I'm surprised they haven't. Yeah, I'm surprised Osprey hasn't seen this and gone, this really could be done better. That's the one surprising thing. You see errata and FAQs popping up all the time on other sites, and even personal sites or Board Game Geek sites, and this just lacks it for the most part. And so I'm intrigued, I'm excited, but at the same time, I'm also, gonna stay away with a 10-foot pole until I figure out things. So there you go. Now we're gonna go over to Twitter, because, I get my sources from everywhere, right? CMON, man, you're killing me here. I love Marvel United. I love Marvel United X-Men. First you did Grey Hulk at San Diego Comic-Con. Now you're doing Gen Con Juggernaut. Getting a unique deck. Man, come on. Come on. I love this game, and I can't get these because, otherwise people are going to sell them for like $50 in the retail market. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I have mixed feelings about this. This is a core game villain, so take it for what you will, but as someone who really loves this game, this is irritating. This is even more of an exclusive standpoint. Either way, take it for what you will. I imagine this won't be the last of it either. They'll continue to do this, because this is also a cheap way to do it, because you don't have to do the miniatures, you just need the cards. So there you go. Then we're going to go over to Avalon Hill, and I normally don't do a whole lot with Avalon Hill because, I just don't have a lot of overlap with them. But there were a couple big announcements over on the Avalon Hill blog. Releasing this month, I talked about this one like a year ago, Risk Shadow Forces, a new legacy game, choosing a warlord, asymmetric factions, playing Risk in a completely different way. Can it hang with the big boys of the legacies of the 2020s? I don't know. A new Betrayal at House on the Hill edition. 3rd edition is coming out. 50 unique haunts. Are they actually going to make the rulebook playable? And then we're seeing more Heroquest. More new Heroquest. New expansion, and there's going to be more of that coming out. Then they also have announced a Dungeons & Dragons game, Yawning Portal, which is going to be something completely different, more in the world of Dungeons & Dragons, Forgotten Realms. Q1 of 2023 though, so you can pre-order it as well through like the Hasbro Pulse. And then they talk about what else is going to be new from HeroQuest with another one, Mage of the Mirror. and they're just going to be putting up more and more of this, right? More and more and more, and they're sticking to their guns with the revamp, reprints, extraordinaire. So take that for what you will. If you're a fan of those, well, great. If you're not, then, well, probably doesn't do much for you either way. Does this look familiar to anyone? What's that? Ark Nova? That one's old news, Chris. Well, Capstone all of a sudden decided to announce on Thursday, the beginning of Gen Con, that they're going to be releasing 2 new map packs for Ark Nova. For all of you that have played it more than 0 times like me, that would not actually be me in that case. I actually haven't got mine played. They're releasing 2 new packs, which people are excited about, and I'm assuming they're going to be able to pre-order them sometime on Capstone's site or across the board in the near future. So hopefully it just doesn't become as sold out as the base game was for as long as that happens. So that's on the Hotness as well too. So we're covering 2 birds, 1 stone here. And also at the top of the Hotness at the time of me filming this is the upcoming Knizia remake of Quo Vadis. This is Zoo Vadis, coming from a combination of Mr. Rayner as well as Bitewing Games. But this isn't coming until crowdfunding sometime in 2023. It's an elegant political strategy game with multiple mechanisms that you're going to be utilizing, a redux, a much prettier version of his original game, and Bitewing has a little bit more info over here on their website, where you have a wild government run by creatures and fueled by attention and prestige of wide-eyed visitors. You're enhancing a 3-player game, which is very, very difficult in a negotiation-based game. Bribable figures, playing up to 6 to 7 with a second board, asymmetric animal abilities, new special tokens, and chunky animal figures, which they did really well with Trailblazers. So if they can copy that over for this game in sort of a deduction political thriller in 20 to 40 minutes, okay, I'm in. I'll see you in 2023, Bitewing. Show me what you got. Let's go. Let's go back to Marvel here for a second. This is Villainous. Now, it's not Star Wars Villainous, which I have yet to pick up because I feel a little bit mixed about the Villainous titles as a whole, because if I didn't really like the first one, I don't think, as I've asked several people, that Star Wars is necessarily doing anything different apart from the thematic incorporation. But in case you missed it, with the Star Wars release, they have also announced the upcoming release of We Are Venom, which is adding symbiotes. I mean, all it says on the details that have been released to the press is that it's just going to be Venom. So is it really going to be a standalone expansion with just one? I would doubt it. Maybe have thrown Carnage in there, something like that as well. I don't really know. I'm not really familiar with any of the other main symbiotes, but those are obviously the 2 largest ones. And if you like Villainous, if you like the Marvel spin on it compared to the original Disney or even the now recently released Star Wars, this might be up your ilk, because we also saw a previous expansion with Loki. So there you go, to add it to your collection. Now we're going to go over and do the whole Gamefound thing, because Gamefound just released a blog talking about the big upcoming ones by the end of the summer, or sometime, I mean really the metaphorical end of the summer if you're in North America, at least, if you will. And this is the new endeavor, the remake of the original 2009 game back in 2018, a combination of Burnt Island Games and Grand Gamers Guild. Grand Gamers Guild is now bringing it back with Burnt Island Games as a new venture into the deep sea as opposed to above the shoreline. So we'll see it less pirates and more deep sea submergible, it looks like, from that aspect. We're going to see where it goes in 2023, apparently, because this is clearly not coming anytime soon. So plug up those holes in your wallets before this crowdfunds in 2023 for when you eventually get it in 2025. The question is just going to be, what are you doing different? And I love the idea. This theme is great. This is highly underutilized, right? The only thing I can think of is actually underwater cities. So I'm actually really intrigued by this one. This one is now on my want list. Very low, but wasn't all before, so take it for what you will. The second big one that was announced was from Creative Games. You may know them from Chronicles of Drunagor. This is Dante, the Invasion of Hell. So we're going into hell. We're going to see, Dante's Inferno. We're going to see the 7 sins probably incorporated here. And they're going to be doing a lot. So they give a little post here right now, and there's going to be open doors, hearing ideas from you. They're going to bring stuff to us and show us what we need or what we can see. The only question is, already in a couple days announced, we've got 4,000 followers. What all is it actually going to be? 1 to 4 player based on the Divine Comedy, exploration, various circles of hell, epic battles, best war game style. I have no idea what that means. Safe route to your objectives and exploring challenging corners. So I hope less from the mythic side of things with Joan of Arc. Oh yeah, Solomon Kane. I'm thinking less Tainted Grail and more dungeon crawl. But we'll see. I mean, this is by the same people that brought you this, and we're going to see a little bit more because This wasn't even on the page when I first checked it out on Thursday or Friday. So there you go. That one definitely an interesting theme. Also, I hope it's not more like the one from CMON that used this theme. So hopefully they stay away from that. And now that Ghost Galaxy picked up the Keyforge algorithm, the Keyforge name, we're going to see Keyforge come out now through crowdfunding, which even has more people, 4,500 people following it at this point. I love the idea of this. I hate the practicality of it, right? This is a game where I want somebody else to own it and bring over a couple decks so we can play, and then I can be rid of them. Because especially if it's a deck that doesn't suit you, then you just have a deck that doesn't suit you. And what do you do with it? Well, nothing. You can't do anything with it. So that's the blessing curse of these unadaptable decks that come pre-made. I mean, it's great because you don't have to do anything, but it's also horrible because if you get one that doesn't work or you don't like, then you're just stuck with it. 2 new player starter set, and everything else that you're going to be. I have no clue what any of this stuff means. It's coming in September, and we'll see what Brobnar and Mars are going to bring to us in terms of the favorites. I don't know what I'm talking about anymore at this point, but I mean, it's in the line of Magic the Gathering, but without having a deck construct and just picking up and playing. So if it can make it here, it can make it anywhere, as they say in New York, right? So we'll see what it looks like on Gamefound and how big a support it gets on crowdfunding instead of the retail side of things. Does this look familiar to you? Point Salad? No. Point City. Flatout Games is now coming out with AEG to make a game called Point City. Engine build, resource management, grab 2 cards from the sides and put them together in your city to make combos. Rinse and repeat and score the most points before the end of the game. That's about all we know. But surprisingly, much more thematically interesting to me than Point Salad. So this one is on my wish list. Again, albeit below, definitely a great filler-esque style game. So we'll see what they can do together. Not over to release date though, so take that for what you will. But maybe we'll see it before the end of the year. But I wouldn't bet on it either way from that standpoint. So next up, we have Regine from Devier Games. You may remember them from Bitoku. This is a departure from Bitoku. Think Fantasy Realms, only think Fantasy Realms with the abilities of cards that are going to affect other people's hands tremendously as a take that style game. And that's kind of what you got here. The interesting aspect is you take one of 4 actions on your turn. You exchange a card from your hand to the top of the deck. You play a card face down or face up. You declare no changes, so no one can change any cards, or you pass. And if you pass, then you blur the remaining cards in your hand face down, and then the bluffing goes into sort of a poker style-esque mechanism to see who has the most sets and the most runs and things like that. So definitely a different twist on things, and definitely a different mechanical style of things compared to the heavy worker placement of Bitoku. But, you know, I think it sounds kind of nifty. Sounds kind of nice and light. We're getting into the light things in this part of the video. So give this one a look-see, put it on your wish list, and let's see where it goes. Now, let's go over to the Animal Kingdom again. I should have probably put this with Zuvadis, but 2 new animal-based games have also been announced. The first up here is The Wolves, coming retail from Pandasaurus in October. And this is more of an area control style game where you're going to be playing 2 to 5 players, survival of the fittest, recruiting wolves, claiming territory, and going into other packs' territory, trying to lure them or avoid being lured away. They give us a little bit of details down here in the bottom in terms of the mechanisms. Each action requires you to flip terrain tiles matching the terrain where you wish to take your action. That means the actions will set up later actions that you may have to deal with. And if you really want attributions and if you really want interaction, they say that this is going to be a good game for you. You have upgrading your pack's attributes, allowing you to take more aggressive actions, and there are 3 endgame scoring triggers. So definitely an interesting twist of things. The other one actually gives me much more appeal from the Animal Kingdom side of things, and this is the Fox Experiment from Elizabeth Hargrave. You may know her from Wingspan, right? And Mariposas, which is the less successful but equally pretty from an elemental and animal side of things about butterflies. This one is about domesticating foxes based off of real life experiences. Now, they initially, Pandasaurus is running this one to crowdfunding, I believe in September, and they originally announced it sort of as a roll and write. Now, they came up with a clarification earlier today on Twitter, and they said it uses roll and write mechanisms, but is distinctly not. So apparently, someone on the backside of things was not happy about that being the description and the misnomer in terms of describing the game. So they had to really kind of backtrack a little bit. It's going to use those mechanisms, but it is definitely not that, as you can see, the dice in the upper left-hand corner. And then as we scroll down into the right here, you can see the different foxes that you're going to be trying to recruit. And I love foxes. And I've heard people clamoring for this game that have played it already. And so I'm going to be probably looking at this one heavy and hard when it comes to crowdfunding. And it'll probably be on my top picks for crowdfunding in September when that video comes out later in the month. All we know in terms of the mechanisms is you're going to be basically rolling dice to see if you can have foxes breed to become more domesticated. And eventually have them domesticated enough to live in a household. And so I'm not really sure what that's going to entail or how that's going to be differing, but you can see that each player has their unique board and those central board as well as a ton of dice. I have no idea, but like I said, I'm going to be heavily interested in it, and it's going to be high on my watch list for September. Couple last things here. They're announced at the end of Gen Con here. Legendary encounters. The Matrix. I love The Matrix. It's probably in the top 5 movies all time for me. The original was. I remember being in the theaters and just having the mind blown. Sort of like how Mission Impossible, the first one, really gives you a complex plot. Now we're going to talk about 2 or 3. I mean, that's a whole nother issue. But Legendary game, if they can actually do it right, I'm super intrigued. I am super hyped. Now, people on Reddit were like, oh, this artwork is horrible. It's better than movie stills. It's better than movie stills. So no other details are out right now. We'll see what Upper Deck can actually do, if they can actually give us something super, super solid. I have not been impressed with their more recent lease of the James Bond one, although it's getting an expansion or has an expansion now. So we'll see what that ends up looking like. And then last up from Brotherwise Games. Brotherwise Games has announced Overboss, but Overboss Duel, a 2-player head-to-head one, or play it as an expansion with your original Overboss, but not be coming until 2023. Sort of a tile-laying, dungeon building, you know, for bad guys against good guys sort of game. How are you going to do that as a 2-player game, though? I have no idea, but I'm intrigued. Let's see what Brotherwise can do. We're going to run through the hotness here really quickly because I already touched on most of them, and most of them are you're going to recognize. Youthia. Youthia is still in the hotness because the crowdfunding campaign just ended this weekend. Steamforged Games picked it up, 7,500 people went for it, and 1.6 million pounds raised. Did you back it? Should you back it? You can still late pledge if you have room for a 3-hour to punch game. Haha, just kidding. It takes that long to play it too. It's just a Mage Knight modularity driven token, etc., everything over the top in terms of RPG-esque customization in a board game that you can get. The big problem was you can't get it for like less than $200 because even the core pledge is throwing in all these expansions because, you know, as the argument was made to me in the comment section the other day, you have to have all the expansions. Everyone's doing all the expansions, so why not just make everyone get all the expansions anyway? Let's just skip over the fluff and just go straight there, right? Sorry. No, I mean, I wanted this game. The 3-hour time frame, though, is prohibitive for me. So if people can tell me you could play this game in an hour to an hour and a half, if you could do like a session like that, I'd be all in on this. I could afford getting the core game pledge with these expansions, but I'm not going to pay for 3 hours of game that's going to sit on my shelf. I mean, that's more like 3-year game right there instead. So that's where things are at from that aspect. Now, the other thing that's on the hotness getting a reprint is Foundations of Rome. Sound familiar? Oh yeah, it's on crowdfunding right now too, but it's only at $320,000, even though it has half that number backing it already. And I think, you know, to only be at $320,000, it has to mean that a lot of people are getting just the expansion and not as many new people coming in is my guess. Because I haven't really looked at the numbers, but it has 2 weeks left. Arcane Wonders is doing a little bit of a longer campaign than Steamforged is. So yeah, 2,600 of the 3,800 are getting just the expansion here. I'll pull this up so you can see it a little bit higher since my head's blocking in the lower right now and I'm not used to that. I'm used to being in the lower left. And new backers getting the Emperor, again, going with the everything pledge. You need to get the everything, all of the expansions included, except for the new one, though. You have 500 people doing that. So you have a lot of people in at $1 right now. You have about, what is that, like 700 people at the $1 pledge right now? So that's a ton. It's a ton of money. People are saying it's great, but is it the best game in your collection for $200 at that point? I am getting away from that, hopefully, even though things like Youthia suck me back in, and it's a dangerous, dangerous slope, folks. So take that for what you will. Nightfall from Red Raven. I covered this in my Gen Con Games to Know, and it's getting more attention. I think the release date is sometime in the near future. Is a keen observer pointed out in the comment section. This is a remake of, it wasn't quite Nightfall, it was Night something, but it's a redo from Red Raven's I don't want to say failed Kickstarter because they technically funded, but they clearly didn't reach any of their funding goals of this Knights versus Demons asymmetric skirmish style game where you can either play 1 versus all or 1 versus 1 or 2 versus 2, and you take your side. You have scenario based, but you also have cooperative that you can play against the game. So it looks cool, and hopefully they've redone it enough that it's going to appeal to people a lot more. Apparently it was initially supposed to be available at Gen Con. Due to shipping issues, it was not. They have some prototypes that people were playing, and it's on Tabletop Simulator. So you can also pre-order it from Red Raven Games' website if you are super interested, because I know the Red Ravens folks are, you know, hardcore Red Raven folk fans. So take that for what you will. Check it out and see if it's right for you. Last up on the hotness, we have Northgard. This is based off a computer game IP, and they're doing 4X in essentially an hour. Now, Kickstarter backers are receiving their games or have been receiving their games as of late, and that's why it's on the Hotness. And the early hype is relatively pretty positive overall. It's got over an 8.4 rating currently, and the only issue is there are some Kickstarter exclusive expansions that aren't clear if they're going to be available at retail right now. So you can pre-order the base game. You can kind of see what it looks like from a campaign-driven, asymmetric deck bag building 4X style game as a Viking clan. Clever management of resources, make your warriors better, and upgrade your cards in order to just, outdo your opponent. I saw this one originally launched on crowdfunding from Hatchet Games, but I wasn't familiar with the IP, and we're going to kind of see how well this does. And when everyone starts to get it more broadly, does it hold up in terms of rating? Because I don't really have a 4X game like this, and if you can play it in an hour, color me intrigued. But I've heard people say that there is expansion stuff that they already would recommend not playing without. So if that's the case, do I really want a retail version, or am I looking at the retail version, or am I looking at getting someone's Kickstarter that doesn't want it? So there you go. That's Northgard. Okay, I lied. One last secret thing here at the very end, post Hotness, because it just was released on day 4 at the end of FFG's stream today. And this is Star Wars, the deck building game. Star Wars, the deck building game? I'm both excited, confused, and frustrated at the same time, right? If you had said Star Wars LCG, like, you would have had me throwing Arkham Horror out of the house window or getting... No, I'm just kidding. But it would be surpassing all other LCG models if it was sort of a cooperative deck builder. But this appears to be like Dominion deck builder-esque. I hope I'm wrong, but... I don't know how I feel about this, because if FFG, you're going to put out a straight deck builder, this better be freaking top-notch. Freaking top-notch in lines of Arkham Horror, Marvel Champions, Lord of the Rings. It better be that as opposed to like Upper Deck Legendary sort of deck builder, to reference that earlier in the video, right? I expect good things with the Star Wars IP. Do not let me down. Boom, roundup complete. Post-Gen Con news, everything you need to know, all the stuff that I saw, the highlights, the lowlights, and everything else in between. Hopefully it's entertaining, useful, and somewhat informative as always. The most games in the least amount of time. Best internet news board game video that you're going to see today. Sorry, it's like the lock of the century of the week. Aqua Teen Hunger Force, if you know what I'm talking about, right? Anyway, that's all I got. That's all I got. Reviews out this week, hopefully. A little bit of everything. I have a Ramble stored. I got a couple retrospective lookbacks. A little bit of everything. So, as always, tune in. Sub. I'm only about 3,900 people away. 3,949 left. To 10,000. See you around. Have a great day.